Thank you for tuning in to Roll Call. The movie selected is Jersey Girl.
Oh yeah, hey everyone. Welcome to Roll Call. This is a very special episode where two childless millennials get to, in person, gush over movies and follow an actor's journey over their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Yes, because let's face it, we miss Blockbuster.
Yes, and Bria sent me a picture yesterday of Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck in the heyday of like 2003, it was like a paparazzi picture coming out of Blockbuster, and I texted back like what I wouldn't give to be the fly on the wall at that Blockbuster, because we were speculating that they were trying to like get rid of all the Geely copies out of it.
You know, what I wouldn't give to be, you know, a little Kit Kat bar on the shelf. Just like, oh my God, is that Bennifer? Shit. Like,
what I wouldn't pray.
Or like, what if they had tabloids in stock at the Blockbuster of Bennifer?
Oh my God.
In the checkout queue.
Oh my God.
Probably not. But.
Or, I mean, it's funny when you said, like, to be the Kit Kat bar. I'd want to be that big tub of, like, microwavable popcorn. And I'd just be like, please take me home. Take me home.
So, from what we could see of this paparazzi picture, we did not see a tub of popcorn. So, yeah, maybe they had some at home. Maybe J-Lo's a Jiffy Pop girl, or Pop Secret, or Skinny Pop, or something.
No, this was pre-Skinny Pop. Maybe Ben Affleck is, he's an Orville Redenbacher's daddy. Or you know what, fuck it. They're both rich enough that they probably had their own movie theater in their house with like an old-fashioned style popcorn
cart. Yes. You're absolutely right.
And fuck it. That's like...
With
that's
like truffle butter and shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, this is like our longest intro.
And we're cutting none of it because it's this one's gonna be good.
This is organic friendship at its finest in person. So.
Truly. This is, I think, what the podcast was almost meant to be visually, of just two gals shooting the shit over some good movies and not so good movies.
All right, so what's up, guys? I'm Bria, and dear Kevin Smith, this is my letter to Kevin Smith. Please release your director's cut of Jersey Girl. I want to see the wedding. I want to see all the Bennifer stuff you cut out. Give it to us. Even if it's like a few just like bootleg DVDs that you put out on your website, I will buy it. I will give you $50 just to see all the good stuff you cut, because Bennifer 2.0 deserves it, and we deserve it. Now that we're back, we deserve to get what we didn't get in 2004.
I absolutely agree. And Kevin Smith, I'm going to change my intro line and throw it back out there to you too. Honey, I know you've been through a lot. He had a heart attack, and I know re-release was probably not on your top priority list, but as two gals who would just really love to see the Zack Snyder version of Jersey Girl, where it's the director's cut of what it's with these extra footage scenes that Miramax felt the need that they had to cut because they were so scared of getting the Geely curse added onto it. Like, these Kevins, we're happy you're okay, but do this.
He knows. He said, like, I think at some kind of movie festival, I forget what it's called. I read it. I'm sorry. I'm such a terrible journalist. This is why this is our hobby, not our day job. But he showed that cut at a festival, and he was like, you know, I really want to release a Snyder cut of Jersey Girl, of all the stuff that we had to get out. So he's said that. So it is on his radar. So maybe we need to tweet, you know, Kevin Smith from our @RollCallPod Twitter account
Yo, y'all, we have so much shit to plug at the end because we're getting official now. I don't know if y'all know this, but we have listeners from the UK and Greece.
Shout out to y'all if y'all have stuck with us and are actually still listening by the time this gets posted.
Truly. And you know, at one point, maybe we'll be bold enough to get a P.O. box, because if any sugar daddies out there in Greece or the UK are listening and you want to send us some like good candy or like wine,
yes,
babe, I will open up my own P.O. box just for you to send us.
Accent. It's terrible, but it brings me joy, and that's all that matters. So, but let's get into the podcast.
Yes.
2004 Jersey Girl, usually a season full. Has so little Jennifer Lopez that truly this is an observation of the Bennifer that could have been. So let's take a trip back to March 26, 2004. Simone, do the honors of blessing us with some pop culture of 2004.
It would be my pleasure, love. All right, so in general news that's happening around the world, one thing for us Disney adulters out there, the Walt Disney Company officially voted to oppose the re-election of Michael Eisner. Ooh. Michael Eisner was a CEO and chairman of the Disney Company for quite a bit of time, kind of notoriously known for being a bit of a douche and a flop. Although he did oversee the opening of California Adventure in its originality, but anyways, that
was a flop.
Yeah. That's a different podcast altogether that we could totally do. But Michael Eisner stepping down in March of 2004. He's going to be replaced shortly by someone named George Mitchell. Martha Stewart is found guilty of insider trading and obstruction of justice. So Martha Stewart goes to jail in March of 2004.
That was big.
It was. It was, because she was sentenced, I mean, originally it was going to be a maximum of 20 years, but we all knew that she was only going to be in that, like, plush, good life prison for, like, a few months.
I was going to say, I feel like that's the start of the realization that not all people get the jail that we think they get in, like, designer prisons, or, like Teresa Giudice on Real Housewives of New Jersey likes to say, like, camp. You know, not very hard time spent. Some plush.
No, it was time. A slap on the wrist that would be considered harsh times for someone like Teresa, or especially Martha Stewart, because she has a lot. But it would be considered like a good discount family vacation for you and I. You know what I mean? Like, it would be like, oh, okay, Holiday Inn, nice. Like,
or like a retreat.
Yeah. We have our basic needs met. We're fine. We can stick with continental breakfast and move on. But for Martha Stewart, it's considered a slap on the wrist and slumming it for a few months.
Yeah. I mean, not to shit on anybody's prison time, but, you know, some of them facilities are not that, not that unbearable, I would feel like. But I still wouldn't want to necessarily do anything to go to prison. So FYI, not saying that we're okay going to prison.
No. I mean, no, I'm not okay with either, although I was listening back on our Out of Sight episode that was released, and the comment that I made about wearing a yellow jumpsuit, I'm like, I still stand by that. I still think I'd look like, if I had to go.
Yellow's your color, not orange. Not the black and white stripes.
All right, in other news, George Michael announces that he will stop selling music, and will stop, like, selling his music online. And any profit made henceforth will be passed on by donations to charity. I don't. Again, this is our hobby and not our career. I didn't do any further research to see if that ever came to fruition.
Yeah.
But I do remember that this is the turn when iTunes and Apple Music, not Apple Music, but iTunes, becomes bigger. Napster and LimeWire are pretty much donezo for this point. Napster for sure. LimeWire still might be alive and well at this point. That there were artists that were very against free distribution and downloading of music, and artists kind of like George Michael that were like, who gives a shit? I just want people to listen to my music.
You know, I feel so weird about digital music because I just bought a record player and it has blown my mind how inconvenient that was. It is fun, it looks great, all that stuff, but it is not as convenient as being like, hey Siri, play Jennifer Lopez. And she
there
does
she
it.
goes. You're serious British?
Yes, of course. Of course. If I could change that bitch Alexa, I would, but she's stubborn. But the song, look, it's playing play. And J-Lo, don't sue us. Okay, that was unintentional. But anyways, I kind of feel like we opened a can of worms with digital music in a way. It's great, but then like there's so many downsides too, like especially on the artist side of stuff. They get pennies for us streaming music. I understand their argument at that time, especially with new, like it being so new, and it's still an issue. Like it's still a thing where, you know, Spotify pays less, Apple Music plays okay, Tidal pays pretty good, Napster pays really well in the scheme of things.
You're trying to make up for.
Yeah,
we're sorry.
But yeah, the fact that that's still a thing 20 something years later, like, or less than 20 but almost 20, you know, doesn't blow my mind.
And then last in just general news, during this time, the Madrid bombing and same-sex marriage were in the news a lot. Of course, we don't get a lot of the legalization of same-sex marriage until 4 years later, but this was in the time, 2004 being an election year. It was definitely on the docket for a lot of different states. Each state had like a different day within March that it was brought to like a national court hearing about it.
Was this Prop 8 time?
No,
or?
Prop 8 was 2008, so
Okay.
it was a little bit before then. But there were some courthouses that recognized same-sex marriage, and like places like San Francisco and places in Oregon as well that were able to recognize them. But then for a while, of the mass shooting at the Pulse Club.
Oh,
So
wow.
our hearts go out to the 49 people that were. Some good ones, and I distinctly remember seeing some of these in the movie. Scooby-Doo 2,
Oh.
Home on the Range, a Disney movie that not many people know about.
Is that an animated movie?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. It was one of the last, well, not one of the last. Princess and the Frog was the last, like, 2D animated, but it was 2D. Secret Window, starring Johnny Depp.
No clue. Never heard of it. Sorry, Johnny.
That's okay. That was one that I definitely saw in the theaters because I was riding that Pirates of the Caribbean high of like.
I was going to say, Johnny Depp was like, he enjoyed a resurgence of fame and adoration from teen girls at this time. My friend, shout out to Megan if you ever listen to this podcast, for one of her birthdays we went to Pier 39 and she bought a Johnny Depp poster of him like on the piano. Anybody has that poster, shout out to you. But yeah, like he's so much older than us, but he was like so many girls were writing that Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, I mean, I think the eyeliner had quite a bit to do with it, because in like the early aughts, boys wearing eyeliner became a very sought out thing. And I know that if any boy with like emo straight bangs and eyeliner batted an eyelash at me, it would have been a straight hit, as you say. All right, another one was Taking Lives, starring Angelina Jolie. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, for all of you indie Urban Outfitter folks out there. I saw that one in the theater, I remember, and that's something that, like, but just as someone who has been labeled a manic pixie dream girl, a la Kate Winslet in that film, which at the time sounded like a compliment, but now that I know more about women's roles as a manic pixie dream girl, I take it as a kind of as an offense. But that was like a huge movie, and it's I'm totally not shitting on it. It's an amazing movie, but I just remember idolizing that kind of character and that kind of flighty person of like, oh, this is me, I live in the moment and I'm quirky, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. I mean, don't defend yourself, because we were young at the time. We're very impressionable, you know, at that age. You're trying to emulate, and by emulating figure out maybe who you are, which really doesn't happen until we're maybe the ages we are now. So no one gave you that warning. So yeah, I've never seen that movie, but now I want to watch it.
Oh, okay. Well, Bria's spending the night tonight, so this might be one that we need to watch. It's cute, and Kate Winslet has some hair goals in that movie. She has this beautiful, like, orange, kind of like Nickelodeon orange tangerine colored hair, and then she also rocks this beautiful blue hair in the movie as well.
Ooh.
Dawn of the Dead also came out that year. Definitely saw that in the theater. Shout out to Jordan Wentz, if you're ever listening, my middle school crush of all time. But he was also like my best friend at the time as well. I saw Dawn of the Dead with Jordan Wentz and then a few of our other friends, but I did that thing in the theater of like pretending to be afraid so that mofo would hold my hand. Spoiler alert, he never did. But you know what? We had a good time watching that movie. And those are pretty much it for, I mean, like, there were other films that were re-released or released that month, but those are the big ones that stand out for me. And then, before we move on to our next segment, the music of March 2004, because you've inspired me. That's something that you started doing recently with our pop culture throwback.
It helps. I mean, music for me is such a, like, sometimes I know where I was when I heard the song, yes. Or like I know what time in my life that this was important, you know?
Yes.
So, yes, hit me with the songs.
All right. The Franz Ferdinand self-titled album came out that year.
Ooh.
Usher Confessions came out that year.
Oh my God. I could do a podcast on that album in that era. Like,
And then, again, Bria, I wrote this down for you. Janet Jackson's
Demita Joe.
Thank you.
Yes.
Demita Joe came out.
That's the last album prior to Unbreakable that I can listen to fully and be like, okay, yes.
Yeah.
But anyways.
For this podcast specifically, Jennifer Lopez's single of Baby I Love You comes out in March of 2004.
Oh, okay.
And then The Killers.
Ooh, hold the phone. Okay. They break up shortly after that, right? Okay.
Awkward.
Yeah. Because that song is such a, like, I mean, hello, Baby I Love You.
It is.
And the video, like, okay.
Is this the one? Is that the video where she's in her undies?
Yes, and she's like in a beautiful, like, well lit room in white bedding and stuff and rolling around looking amazing. Yes.
I remember talking about that on the previous episode before Geely. And then our indie rock pop band, The Killers, Somebody Told Me, came out as a single in March of 2004. The like, okay, if I can describe your face for a quick second. Bria did this like eye roll and then like batted her eyelashes in a semi-sexual way, I would say. But Hot Fuzz was like, that was a banger album. That's one that I would go back and listen to time
I
after
want
time.
that on vinyl. That is like one of my, I've been trying to build my record collection proudly black and R&B and some hip hop, but that is a alternative album that I need. That and Panic at the Disco and Riot are on like, they're on my alternative list of shit I need to buy. But oh my god, Hot Fuzz. Yes, absolutely. Oh man.
But I'll send you some articles because there were some like general pop culture things that happened specifically in 2004. Because I'm curious to hear just as it'll be interesting going forward. I think with this podcast of like let's just say we do Meryl Streep next year or next season, and if we cover events of the same month / same year in the same fashion. I think it's actually kind of a unique perspective that we started Jennifer Lopez because of the duality of being a pop star and an actress, it like having all of these different realms. So we get like multiple facets of this pop culture arena, right?
Yeah. Maybe we'll do like books with Meryl Streep. Hot books from 2004.
What was popping in Oprah's book club that year?
Yes. What was hot on the Barnes and Noble shelves? Like, let's get into it. That's a great point to make. That's funny. Is it my turn?
It is your turn, Bria. Please tell us. So we're talking about Jersey Girl. Directed by Kevin Smith. Bria, what did this movie cost? What did it make? And I'm dying to know what Lil Raj thought about this.
Woo. I know you love a good woo. All right. So, Jersey Girl. I'm terrible at this. So Jersey Girl had a budget of $35 million. And then it had a domestic gross of $25 million. There's some loose numbers after that. And then an overseas gross of $10.8 million. So an overall gross of around 35, maybe 36 million. So not technically a flop.
It almost sounded like they broke even.
Yeah. I mean, and thinking of the movies that, you said that it went against, Scooby-Doo. I mean,
Scooby-Doo actually did pretty damn
good. I mean, I can imagine, because that's a family movie, that's a kid's movie, so you get duality there. Yeah, I think that's, like, the biggest thing that, and apparently, like, Lady Killers and Never Die Alone, I'm assuming they might have been residual from February, were movies that, didn't help its cause.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, at first I was surprised when he said, how much was the budget?
$35 million.
Compared to other movies that we've talked about, this is low. This is one of the lowest budget films. But that also doesn't surprise me because Kevin Smith movies, like Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, they tend to be lower budget because it's him and his friends and they're like props and settings or actual locations. They don't really have to like make a lot of props and sets on their own, which again, I can see this.
I just want to say for a second, like, I love Kevin Smith.
Oh, me too.
Like,
me too. I love his movies.
Yeah, I love Mallrats. I kind of want to, like, I've seen some of Clerks and some of Clerks 2, but I kind of want to go on a Kevin Smith binge. But he is, like, if I were a filmmaker, he has his friends involved, and he has a very specific voice. It's a very realistic voice, you know? It's not too, like, Hollywood and cinematic. It's very down to earth. I used to love his show Comic Book Man. Not that I don't like it anymore. Now that I'm saying it, like, I should probably get back on it. And I think he has a podcast with those guys. But, like, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, props to him. And Clerks 3 is coming out eventually. Like, they're working on that, I think.
Oh, wow.
In my research of Jersey Girl, I saw that somewhere. So we need to go see Clerks 3 together.
Agreed.
That is a date.
Agreed.
But yeah.
And kind of, I mean, Kevin Smith, when he knows him, he knows him. And similar to a lot of directors out there, will choose similar people within their casts. But I love that. And you can tell that the people that were there on the set for Jersey Girl and any other Kevin Smith movie, that they're there to have a good time. They know that they're not there for a all-around serious film. Like, he picks people that he's friends with, and I like that.
Yeah. I did watch an interview with the actress who plays Ben Affleck's daughter. So we'll probably talk about that when we get to interviews.
Yes.
That
I watched a few of those.
That helps the cause of the cast atmosphere of Jersey Girl. But, you know, at this point, I'm sure the people want to know what our main man in heaven, Lil Raj, had to think about this movie. Simone, what is your guess for how many stizzars Lil Raj gave Jersey Girl?
Lil Raj is a wild card because there are times where we think a movie is shit and he thinks really highly of it. I'm guessing. Hold on, let me look back at my notes. He gave Gigli. So Gigli got a 6%. Okay, no, he gave Gigli 2.5 stars. He had to have given Jersey Girl more. I'm guessing he gave Jersey Girl 3 or 3.5.
This is fun in person. I just want to say. And I'm definitely tipsy at this point. Yes, you were on the money. Lil Raj gave Jersey Girl 3.5 stars.
Hey!
So if we were in Vegas, we would be rolling in the money right now. Some things from Lil Raj's review of Jersey Girl that I like to point out. Obviously, like we said earlier, this movie really has very little Jennifer Lopez due to the end of Bennifer by the time this movie premiered.
Yeah.
And the bomb that was Gigli.
Yes.
But he very honestly says, I would hesitate to reveal that she died in childbirth if I had not already read and heard this information. Oh, like 500 times. So obsessed is the nation with Ben and J-Lo. And, I mean, that is spot on the pop culture money.
Truly.
I mean, even look at current Bennifer 2.0 Gingerman, reincarnation.
Literally in between Bria and I right now is an In Touch magazine that I've been holding on to for fucking 2 weeks that maybe we'll read at the end of this episode. But it's speculating something about J-Lo and Ben's engagement, shocker, which I don't know.
Oh my god, that's such a lie. Like, I am on the ship. I ship it. I ship it hard.
I ship it.
I haven't shipped anything this hard since, like, Kerry Washington and Tony Goldwyn, maybe.
Now, okay, question. Do you ship it because of this pod?
Probably. That definitely, I'm not gonna lie.
It adds.
This definitely is influencing me in multiple ways, including my music choices. But, yeah. I mean, not that I didn't like Bennifer before. I liked them. You know, they're definitely a power couple, but I think this podcast just heightens like our interest in everything Jennifer Lopez. So, oh my god, I saw that she signed a deal with Netflix. And so that I was just like, "Oh my god." Like, I would probably, that's dope for J-Lo before, but, like, that means so much more to me now.
So she signed a deal for Netflix. What do you think that means? That she's getting a miniseries?
I think that either means that she's gonna do movies, a la maybe Adam Sandler, or she's helping produce content because she does have a production company. So,
Well, interestingly enough, I don't think we ever talked about this while recording, but since Bennifer Benjamin 2.0 came out, all of her movies that were previously on Netflix and Hulu and HBO and all the streaming shit is gone because people are probably either, I don't know, have a higher interest now in watching her films.
They're trying to charge us for Bennifer.
I know. And I think it ebbs and flows, right? Like, not everything's going to be permanent on these streaming sites. But
they usually bounce from one to the other. It's like, okay, it's not on Netflix anymore, but now it's on Hulu.
Right. But that's not the case. It's really difficult to find strictly Jennifer Lopez movies. And I don't know if that's because more people are Googling her name. That I don't know. I don't know how that works.
She is the incarnation of Google Images.
You know what? She truly is. I'm a kiss that magazine for that.
All right, so getting back to Lil Raj's review. Obviously, he is aware of the effect that is Bennifer. But he goes on to say, and I think this is important because while Jennifer Lopez is not fully in this movie, this is a season talking about her performances. So for her performance, he notes that Lopez is luminous in her few scenes, helping to explain why Ollie, Ben Affleck's character, remains so true to her memory that he remains celibate for many years, which I think we know now that Lil Raj is a J-Lo fan. He likes her as an actress, so I think he thumbs up her performance, and I do too. Another interesting thing I pulled out from this was he says, because Ben Affleck is a movie star and looks like one, you might expect him to start dating eventually. But no, you might expect he could find another high-paying PR job. But no, he doesn't. Because then there wouldn't be a movie. When a movie isn't working, we get all logical about things like this. But when it works, we relax. And that last sentence is like such me as a movie watcher. Like, when a movie is working, the most asinine thing could happen. I'd be like, oh my god, like I'm in this. Like, I'm invested. And I think I've said that, like, as we've watched some of these movies, you know, there are some things that just kill me the whole movie, and I'm just like, this is just absolutely
you can't let it.
Yeah, like, kind of like you and Made in Manhattan. There was a lot of things that you were like, what? And there were a lot of things that I was just like, no, but I'm on the ride. I want this to work out.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great, like, line from him about this movie. And I mean, I like his overall review of the movie. He talks about Liv Tyler and how great she's cast in this role, and the beauty of Kevin Smith's writing in terms of pulling out like these really nice comedic moments and stuff. Liv Tyler could easily be like this really like sexual character that's just like kind of very pushy and sexual, but she does it in such a nuanced way where it's really like believable and like endearing in a way where, like, if you go to Blockbuster, doesn't exist, but let's go back.
Okay.
If you go to Blockbuster and you're a widow, you have your kid with you, you try to rent some porn, the guy at the counter is just like, oh, okay. And he is like, you know what? You need to get banged. Let's fuck. That's just saying that out loud, that's weird. But in this movie, you're just like, oh, that's so kind of her. and Lil Raj recognizes that. And it's not weird. And like he said, because the movie is working, it's not jarring. You're just not like, oh, that's gross. You're just like, oh.
It works. And I think that's the difference between, well, a many difference between Jersey Girl and Geely. But, like, you chalk it up to good writing, right? Like, I feel like you can work the shit out of a scene, out of a character. And you could do your best. But at the end of the day, if you're given shitty dialogue and, like, some loosely knitted plot lines, you can't uphold a role. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about Kevin Smith. And that's Geely, I kind of accidentally fell in love with, I think in like a weird ironic way. But Kevin Smith movies, almost like Tarantino movies or whatever, like,
yeah, he has a voice that you're used to.
Yes,
and you're prepared for.
Agreed. And I like what Lil Raj had to say about specifically, like, when we feel comfortable with these things, when those knots are tied, where we feel more at ease, therefore we're able to let some things go.
Yes, he does point out that there's some very movie cliche things going on towards the end. There's this choice between big city life or small hometown. There's the, parent gets to the school event just in the nick of time when their kid's sweating it. There's the slow clap after, all the build up. And obviously Kevin Smith is a movie guru genius fan. So he points out, he's like, I think these are very intentional in that he knew exactly what he was doing by assembling these old reliables. And it works. Like, I totally agree. Like, those are things in a movie, like, movies can be very formulaic, and sometimes that's great. Sometimes we want, like, it's nice to get a twist, and sometimes it's nice to just break all the fucking rules. But, like, sometimes it's like, these things work for a reason, and I think they effectively worked in this movie because of the type of movie it is. It is a romantic comedy, and this is the kind of movie you want from a romantic comedy. So I agree with Lil Raj. Like, I hope you're chilling with some popcorn right now up in heaven, like, enjoying.
I wonder, I'm sure he's resting well with that review, but I wonder if he's someone who is stubborn and he's just like, I said what I said and I meant what I meant, versus if he ever goes back and rewatches something
like Blood and Wine.
So there's two ways he can go with that. He can go back and rewatch Blood and Wine and be like, fuck, I
this is not Jack Nicholson's best work. What was I thinking?
I blew that ego up way too much. Or he can go back and watch Selena or any of the other great movies that we've seen so far and be like, this deserves more. But I think with that too, you forget about living in the moment and, like, taking for what it is, like, at the time that the movie was released, regardless of the fact if you have any emotional ties to it, or like giving something a second chance and watching it with a second eye, knowing that there's other opinions out there. So for that, like, there's a lot, and we said this before, like, Roger Ebert his opinion is not the end all be all for movie reviews, but he's someone that I still respect because I do think he's someone who's like, I said what I said and I meant it.
Yeah. And I think he's very objective. Yeah. Obviously doing this podcast, and then, we've been listening to some of our earlier episodes, and obviously editing, we have to re-listen to stuff. It is very hard for me at this point to be objective about Jennifer Lopez's performances, and it's very hard for me to, Like Gigli, you said you now have like kind of a soft spot for it. You kind of like it, and it's critically panned. It is one of the worst movies ever.
But I think I like it because it's bad.
Yes.
I knew. Yeah, sorry, I stole your thought. Go ahead.
No, but like that's what I'm getting at. Like when a movie gets to, like, I think, I don't know for sure. I'm assuming though that movie reviewers get an early copy of a movie.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're not necessarily seeing it with audiences, but by themselves. And this is my opinion of this. But like when a movie has a life of its own and outside of that realm, you get influenced by some of those things. And so like a movie like Gigli that is critically panned, named one of the worst movies ever, all that stuff, it kind of adds to the lure of, that movie. And movies like The Big Lebowski, which was not a success when it came out, but it's a cult classic. Like there are Lebowski religions and cons and all kinds of stuff for that movie, and it's not necessarily a blockbuster. But then so like I just think for me, like doing this podcast, that watching movies and not being so quick to think about like what everyone else is saying about a movie, but giving it a chance for my own eyes and my own life experience and what that impacts like how I feel about the movie helps. Because I watched Cruella, and if I had gone based on what Twitter said, I would have been like, oh yeah, fuck that. They shouldn't have remade, or they shouldn't have like done an origin story for Cruella, because Twitter was just like, okay, so her origin story is that Dalmatians killed her mom. Like, okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that, but that's kind of it. That's kind of the gist of the story. And you texted me before because I saw it a few days before you did, and you were like, how was it? And I forget what I said, like, good, not great.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, And, like, I don't love Cruella, but it's not a bad movie. And, like, the origin story really doesn't sum down to that to me. Like, I do think the Dalmatian thing isn't fully worked, and I had a few tweets with someone, I saw them saying that, like... Huh? No, another Twitter war. That's what I do because I'm bored. Is just try to instigate, like, discussion and debate.
Anyways, blah, 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 blah. Now we are back after our Cruella rant to
Jersey Girl.
Jersey Girl.
So, from Little Raj's thoughts, what did we think? How many pumps of butter are we giving Jersey Girl?
Okay. As something that would be considered a chick flick, I would give Jersey Girl, I agree with Little Raj on this one. I would give this one a good 3.5 pumps of butter on this one.
Yeah, I do too. When I read his review, I was like, God damn it, Roger, you were spot on.
He hit this one.
Yes, he hit this one out the park.
or he hit this one on the spot that like we agree with.
So 3.5 pumps of butter. I like this. Are you getting what you like to say what size popcorn you're getting? What size popcorn are you getting? Personally, I don't know that I would have gone to see this in theaters. I think this is definitely a home rental, maybe an on TV watch. So I'm getting a bowl of popcorn, definitely generous amounts of butter. But what about you?
I wouldn't have seen this in theaters. I was seeing movies like Eternal Sunshine, Dawn of the Dead, Home on the Range, and Secret Window for a nice little variety of shit. In 2004, but I think that if I wouldn't have seen this in theaters, but I would make a solid extra servings per person, coconut oil version of popcorn, and now I'm tipsy as I talk about this, but I mean, yeah, I would make more amounts of popcorn for a single serving, quote unquote, suggestion size per person, I don't think I would go with a jumbo. I'd go with a large on this one. I'd go with a large with a nice 3.5 pumps.
I just this is gonna get cut, but if me and you are like zooted, poor Kevin. I hope he's okay. He's probably fine because his body weight and stuff is probably higher than ours.
Kevin didn't have an intro shot. Kevin's been probably nursing the same cocktail that we had. Kevin has the same cocktails we do, which is not equal parts, but like partly White Claw, homemade limoncello, brought to you by me, which is my mom's prison hooch recipe, and La Croix. Hold on, I'm gonna pause for a sec. Pause. If you can you pause? I don't know.
All right, let's get back on track. Because we're an hour in, and we have yet to actually get into this fucking movie. Okay, so I'm supposed to do the summary of the movie. I will try to... Yes, that's what I'm going to have to do. Okay, off the dome, we meet Ollie and Gertrude there in love. They fall in love. He's in PR. She's a book editor, publisher, something like that. They live in the high life in the city, fall in love, wound up getting married, having a baby, all that stuff. Unfortunately, Gertie dies in childbirth. Gertie is J-Lo, so we only get a nugget of her time. Ollie, as a single father, widower, is overwhelmed. He moves in with his father, who's helping him out raise the baby. Obviously, fatherhood is not coming easily to him. It also fucks up his job. He says some shit about Will Smith, which is amazing. And loses his career, can't get another job in PR because it's just like he winds up being named, like what happened to him winds up being named like after him, like, oh, you fucked up really bad. And winds up being a street sweeper like his father. So instead of New York, he winds up raising his daughter with his dad in New Jersey, which is like so charming. And then we fast forward, his daughter's older, and very spunky, precocious, and interesting. He's still a street sweeper, but he still longs for the life he had. So he's still hoping to get back in some way with PR. A guy that worked under him, played by Jason Biggs, eventually like has an opportunity for him. But also, in the meantime, daddy-daughter night, they go rent a movie. Liv Tyler works at the movie store. They sort of kindle a conversation and thus force some offering of helping his celibacy issues. And it's a very cute and not perverse kind of meet cute that it could have been, but it works. Yeah. And in some ways, and there's tons of, stuff with the daughter and hijinks and, catching them in the shower, all that stuff. Yes, that's so cute. Lots of cute moments like that. Him and Liv Tyler, still not anything, it's not a strong, like, romance movie between them. It's really, like, a cute, like, kind of just him getting his life back after all these years of having been just like, I have a kid, I need to do this to make ends meet and raise her and do the best I can. He's finally getting some of himself back after losing Gertie. And yeah, so him and Liv Tyler kind of have like now this like kind of relationship, nothing super serious, but the daughter knows about it. The daughter has some funny moments. The grandpa is very involved, played by George Carlin, who is a legend himself. And then there's a big to-do about Ollie trying to get back into the PR and wanting to move back to New York, but his daughter has this play and they've put all this time into it, and now he might not be able to make it because conveniently his interview falls on the day of her play. Yes, and I love the scene with him and Will Smith talking about parenting and stuff. That is amazing. But so he decides, the more important thing is to be there for his daughter. So that's the big rush back scene that Roger Ebert was talking about. So he makes it in time to help her do a scene from, of all plays, Sweeney Todd. Which I think is Kevin Smith's genius of choosing that.
Totally. It's of all the plays, not even a play, but a musicale.
Yes.
Sweeney Todd is a choice. That is a choice.
Oh, and I must mention that initially she wants to do a musical number from Cats, which winds up being probably the number one choice of every kid involved, because there's 2 people before her that they show that oh, this kid and their family are doing Cats. So props to her for having to wind up choosing Sweeney Todd.
Having the chutzpah to be original. I love it.
Yes. And then no super duper happy ending. The play goes off well. They wind up back at their local bar and watering hole, and it's kind of a repeat of when he brought Gertie home, and they go to the bar and hang out with his dad, and life's good, and we assume that life will keep moving forward after this. No big we're in a relationship, I love you, no big no big romantic gesture or anything towards Liv Tyler, but just a dad getting his life back on track after losing his wife in childbirth. So that's my summary of Jersey Girl. Thank you.
Pretty good. Good job.
So we've kind of already talked about the cast. I do want to point out that what's her name, Raquel Castro.
Yes,
I think
that's the daughter.
Yes, I think she and our dude from Made in Manhattan, Tyler Posey, I think they are the 2 better children that J-Lo has mothered in her movie journey. Sorry to little Tessa from Enough, but you're on the bottom of my child actor J-Lo movie list.
No, I agree, and maybe it's just because we don't see. I mean, Tyler Posey is of MTV fame, Teen Wolf, and we see a lot more of them or him. But with Raquel Castro, sorry, I have to relook up her name for a second. I'm lying down for a visual if anyone cares to know. For Raquel Castro, she hasn't really done too much, but we've seen a couple of interviews of her since then, and she talks about her experience on the film. But child acting is just such a fine line to walk of you're overdoing it or you're not doing it enough. And I felt so far that they've done an okay job.
And I just want to point out my big problem I had with Tessa. It wasn't I didn't care that she's whiny. She's a kid. I mean, that exists. I was more so bothered that she was so white. And Raquel Castro is actually, I believe she's mixed. She's Italian and some Latina. I want to say Puerto Rican, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So when we get a older little Gertie, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, she's kind of what you might imagine Ben Affleck and J-Lo's kids would have looked
Agreed.
like. So I was on board with that in terms of that. So besides her and George Carlin, I already kind of talked about Liv Tyler and what Roger Ebert thought about her, and I agree. I think she does this role justice, and there's great nuance there in terms of her propositioning Ollie and stuff that could have gone wrong, but it's just right in this role. And I think Ben Affleck is a very believable. I will say that I enjoyed his New York City executive type and then his small town guy. Like, the fact that he can switch from that to the other within one movie, I was like, they're both super believable. So I was like, that obviously, I think to me the New Jersey like street sweeper guy is more believable, because I think that atones to like his upbringing in Boston and being, you know, relatively middle class and stuff.
Yes.
Or working class. So I totally buy that part way more than the super duper executive guy. But, you know, the fact that he switched between the two, like, it's like, yeah, I get it. And it proves my point that I think he would have been great in Made in Manhattan.
George Carlin?
No, Ben Affleck.
Oh.
He was my replacement for Ralph Fiennes or Will Smith, who's also in this movie.
I know. Yeah, they're no offense to Ralph Fiennes, who is a like very classically trained British actor. It's to make that transition to go into romantic comedies. That's a tough one. But if someone is like, I feel like Ben Affleck, if he were a dog, he would be like a yellow lab. He's just...
You said that before.
He's just so dopey and sweet. He's just so... I don't know what it is about him. There's just something a little bit like frat boy, bad boy, but he's sweet about him that works. So yeah, I agree with you.
So let's talk about, we watched some interviews. There's obviously not a lot of Jennifer Lopez because they pretty much tried to erase her from this movie as much as possible. So she did not promote this movie actively. I watched an interview with Raquel Castro talking about her time on this movie. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah, I thought that was cute too.
Yeah, I loved that Jennifer Lopez gifted her J-Lo clothing.
She did! Because, I mean, fuck, I forgot that J-Lo not only had regular clothing, but clothing for kids.
Yeah.
That's what she said. She was like, yeah, she gifted me, like, a bunch of clothes, and I forgot about this, well, not necessarily, like, I forgot, but that as is tradition, a lot of people on set, when you wrap up a big movie, you do these like wrap up parties, and that's kind of like a white elephant gift exchange where you're assigned a different person. And that like what Jennifer Lopez gave her like a Tiffany's necklace.
No, Liv Tyler did, I think.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then they had like a party at that bar set, I think, or a real bar that.
And Raquel was like, I don't know why they brought me there, but whatever.
And then I love that she was like, oh, she played Jenny for the Block for me before it came out.
Before it was released, yes.
Yes. So, I mean, I loved her interview that she did older as an adult, because that is exactly who I would be if I was a child star and I starred in some huge movie. And didn't realize like that I was in a good little nugget of pop culture time, because she got to witness Bennifer and Jennifer Lopez at her finest too. So she's like, yeah, you know, I didn't think of any of this stuff at the time as being like really important stuff, but like the fact that she can recall those memories and talk about it, like that would be me. That would be my calling card. I'd be like, you know, I played Jennifer Lopez's daughter, and she played me Jenny from the Block before anybody else. So, just saying.
Yes.
And I got free J-Lo, like, clothes. It's just great. Do you want to talk about that interview you sent me? That wasn't for Jersey Girl, was it? The French Canadian one? Okay.
So I watched a few interviews for Jersey Girl. I actually watched a few from Raquel Castro, who played the daughter, and it's interesting, maybe just because she hasn't been in much in her adult career as an actress, and she's a cute girl. For a second, I thought she was the New Age Dora the Explorer.
Like from the live action?
Yeah. I thought that was her, but I was like, no. But I liked watching those because she has that perspective of watching the rise and fall of Bennifer, because they break up. They break up by the end of Jersey Girl, and there are some things that are cut specifically from the movie. I mean, according to Raquel, that was because of their relationship. And at the end of the movie, when she's like doing the dance number, that someone was supposed to be grabbing her hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is why we need the director's cut.
Kevin Smith, send us the director's cut.
Hey, Kevin, even if you just send it to us, we won't post it anywhere. We just want to see.
We don't have a P.O. box yet, but Kevin Smith, email us at what? loyalos@gmail.com. That's LOYAL. Nope, sorry. I'm an English teacher. Sorry, Kevin Smith, email us at LOYALOATS@gmail.com.
Yes, or even our stray listeners, our loyal Oats fam. Can we call them Oats? Our little Odies.
Little Odies. Yeah. We might have to confirm with Jessica on that one to let someone else in the oatmeal group. But I mean, our little Quakers, our little Quakers and Shakers. But yeah, no, Kevin Smith, please, for the love of God, please send us that cut. Anyways, so Raquel was saying that like there were a lot of things that were originally there, and that she remembers watching Jennifer and Ben on set, and she remembers there was like one particular scene that they were like making out, and that the paparazzi came and like took a bunch of... I
don't think it was a scene. I think they were just making out like on set. Like,
sorry, yes, that's what I meant. They were just like making out on set. And as a kid, she was maybe 7 or so when this film was made. But she said that she was old enough to know what was going on, but that she also kind of played dumb, like, oh, these are like my movie parents, so this is what they're supposed to do. But yeah, I did that. She saw that like the next day or so on the tabloids, and she's like, oh, fuck, I was there during that little paparazzi shot that they caught her, or caught them like making out and kissing and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that would have stayed in my memory too. I feel like I watched a Ben Affleck interview, but I don't really remember it at this time. So, props to you, Raquel Castro, for continuing to do interviews about this movie and giving us something to talk about.
Well, she might be the neutral point interviewee of this segment, because since this film was made in the heights and end of what we call Bennifer 1.0, she might have that like neutral perspective of seeing them in the middle of their love affair and romance and engagement, and at the end of it. So I almost feel like I didn't see a lot of interviews with Jennifer and Ben Affleck, whether they were together or separate, for this film.
I don't think J-Lo did any. I'm sure Ben did some. I feel like I watched one, but, I feel like it's probably just standard, like, oh yeah, this movie, it's about a guy, blah, blah, blah.
And maybe that's because Jennifer's role was short. Definitely shorter after the editing and cutting of stuff. But, yeah, I almost feel like Raquel and Liv are like our main strongholds of this movie, holding the glue together.
Or Kevin Smith, I'm sure he's talked about this movie. But yeah.
But in terms of like being neutral and stuff.
Yeah.
But please, go forth.
No, so some facts we have about the movie going on with the neutral point of Raquel Castro is that, following the failure of Gigli, Miramax removed all images of Jennifer Lopez from, like, all promotional things, posters and stuff, because they didn't want it to be, like, another Bennifer kind of feature or, highlight. And then the release date was pushed back from autumn 2003, which would have been right after Gigli, because Gigli was a summer film. And pushed back to early 2004. And obviously they continue to try to downplay Jennifer Lopez's character and her presence in the movie to help with the promotion of the movie, which, I mean, I'm sure at the time was a good idea. I don't think it probably aged well. I think, especially given Bennifer 2.0, that the interest in the movie now would be even higher if her presence was greater.
Yeah.
They might be seeing some of them streaming dollars even more if, Jennifer Lopez was featured in it more. But I could understand that. I just feel like part of me hurts for this movie because I don't think Gigli was that bad of a movie for it to warrant all this extra, like, we've gotta fix this before we wind up like that movie kind of thing. Like, it was bad, but at the same time, this is a totally different type of movie. And I actually, this is a good segue into like how we think that their performances were in this movie, or more specifically Jennifer Lopez, for the amount of time that she was in it. And I think that, like, I agreed with Lil Raj. Like, I think she did really good. He said she was luminous in her parts, which, I mean, is just the J-Lo glow, of it all. And she was, like, I think this might be the smallest.
I was going to ask, of all the shows, I mean, going back, now I'm that millennial who goes back and listens to my own fucking podcast like a goddamn narcissist. But after listening to Nurses on the Line, aka the Crash of Flight 7.
Nurses in the Wild.
Nurses in the Wild, aka the Crash of Flight 7, and My Family, and
Money Train.
Thank you, Money Train. Jack.
This is her smallest role probably since she became a movie star and a celebrity. And I think, again, like always, she's just consistent. Baby Girl's batting average is amazing in movies. And I mean, I have no qualms about her performance in this movie. I wanted more. I would love to see all the uncut stuff that got, scrapped. But I buy into her love affair with Ollie, and I buy into, like, them starting this life together, and you low-key want to see that all happen beautifully. That could have been a whole other movie, to be honest. More like maybe a Marley and Me, where you just see this evolution of this relationship, grow. Or what's that one movie with Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel where they have a baby and I don't remember, but they have a baby and it's like throughout the duration of them being parents, I think. But like, I would very happily saw that. And I think this, I wrote in my notes, is like a great point that the problem with Gigli was not Bennifer and their overexposure, or like, oh, they're dating, so their chemistry in film is terrible. It is not that at all, because I think their chemistry in Jersey Girl was great. It's just the story of Gigli, like, in the script, and that's what, did it in. And so I think this would have been a great avenue for them to redeem themselves as a couple and as actors together in something. And I think Miramax robbed them of that opportunity by being afraid of what happened before. And I get it, but maybe don't cut everything and just postpone when you release the movie. Like, by that time, like, I don't know.
I mean, granted, I'm going to say this like I know I'm an expert in the movie industry.
Movie execs.
But I think Gigli was such box office poison that the thought of releasing another film. Regardless, it wasn't even co-starring Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. But the fact that these two names would even be associated with each other, that they were so nervous that it would also have what we have coined the Geely curse on this movie, that they cut out so much of it. And unfortunately, from my, not unfortunately, but just from a feminist standpoint, it sucks that JLo's the one that had to be cut. And I get it, because Ben Affleck's the main character. Liv Tyler is the second main character. Like, it's about them becoming together and learning how to love again after loss. I understand that piece. But as a whole, analyzing it from being removed back from a bird's eye perspective of watching this film, JLo was the one who got the short end of the stick. All of her scenes were the ones that were cut from the supposed director's cut. Her name was the one who was removed from the movie poster. Yeah. And that sucks. And I don't know, I mean, partly it could have been from the hashtag curse of Geely, but it also could have been from the movement of Bennifer. But when you specifically go out of your way to remove someone's name, you almost make it seem like it's their fucking fault. And it's not her fault. It's not her fault that movie flopped. So, yeah, there's my hot point on that.
Wow, that's a good little nugget of thought there. It's not her fault. I think, like you said, it makes sense, but it's unfortunate that she's the one that suffers. And
I don't think that Kevin Smith purposely wrote her character to die early because of Geely. Obviously, he knows that there's a director's cut out there where there's so much more nuggets of Jennifer Lopez that we see. Yeah. It sucks. And now I'm biased that we're like more than halfway through this Jennifer Lopez season 1 podcast of Roll Call, that she's the one who has to suffer when it's dopey-eyed golden lab retriever boys movie to co-star. And that's not to shit on Liv Tyler. I actually really like Liv Tyler. Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck have previously co-starred in Armageddon. Yes. They have chemistry. So shall we get into that piece before I go off on too much of a side tangent?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've done our 6 degrees of Jennifer Lopez, we've watched interviews of this film. We've talked about some interesting facts that have come up within our research, focusing on Bennifer, our comparisons to Geely. Did you have any opinions on Jennifer Lopez's character risks or acting choices?
I really liked that she was this softer character in contrast to Ollie's hard PR busy guy. And obviously I will say I did not like her hair in this movie. She has these really tight spiral curls, and I feel like they're trying to make them seem like they're her natural hair curl pattern, and it just does not read right. And I just feel like no one would wear that hairstyle numerous times throughout this movie. When he shows up to the Lamaze class, she has a bun and it looks relatively normal, and I'm like, that's the hair she should have had for the most of this movie. This is the first time we see a pregnant Jennifer Lopez. In previous movies, she has kids, but they already exist, and so she's not with child. So I thought it was enduring how emotional she was when she's getting ready for the MTV.
that was my original line of opening up, and and I too want to be a coked out whore. Just kidding, I really don't. But you know, when, I mean, shit, neither you and I nor know the experience of being pregnant, but we've know people who have been pregnant and who have said and made these notions about like going out into an appearance. It wasn't necessarily a video award ceremony that was going to be highly publicized, where you're going to be in comparison to other Hollywood celebrities, but we can understand feeling uncomfortable in a sea of other people who we know are like way out of our category.
Wait. This is Jennifer Lopez's moment in this movie as this character, of how with our would you rathers, of us feeling like, oh, like, you want to get in the shower with us? Okay. This is our moment of being like, oh, you want me to go to the VMAs with these like amazing looking women and I'm a whale? Okay. Like, this is probably the closest she's ever.
Which is funny because she's obviously not pregnant in real life. She's wearing a suit. She looks like Jennifer Lopez wearing a pregnancy suit.
Yes.
And that's the hard part when she's like, I'm a whale. And I do chalk some of that writing piece up to the early aughts.
Yeah.
It's really # a fucking miracle that many of us have survived the beauty standards that were set upon us, that I think this shit is affecting me mentally, like long-term shit that's gonna fuck with me. There's a lot of things that were said in our childhood, late 90s, early aughts, mid-aughts even, about body types that are extremely damaging. So when you see someone that's Jennifer Lopez, who's like, what, Kate Moss body style, but just with like
some booty and some hips, like
some booty and
like
a little pillow in there.
Not even heavy booty.
Yeah, it's like okay. So when she's saying I look like a cow versus that's what I look like generally wearing a dress, it's just it is a little triggering, but I think that's just writing of the times. We know better now as women. Thank you, therapy, and to my therapist for going forward on this one. But I mean, their dynamic though as husband and wife was interesting. I almost felt like Gigli was something. The reviews of Gigli almost, I don't want to say doomed them, but put a bit of a black cloud on their relationship, and I wonder if they had doubted themselves, like, oh, am I supposed to be with this person? Do I have screen chemistry? Because I know the circumstances between Gigli and Jersey Girl were very different, but it was more believable in Jersey Girl for them to get together as a couple. Ben Affleck breaking the boundaries somehow and getting together with a quote-unquote lesbian Jennifer Lopez, versus it felt less believable for them as a married couple in Jersey Girl. But please tell me your thoughts.
Wait, you feel like they were less believable in Jersey Girl?
I felt believable in the sense that this is what maybe their private life actually looks like behind the scenes, the bickering and arguing constantly. But I liked them better as a couple.
In Gigli.
Yes.
You know, this is like totally not even fictional territory anymore, but I don't think that Jersey Girl mimics like their actual relationship at the time, like, because to me from that Pat O'Brien interview, like J-Lo was very, to me, submissive in that relationship, and I get that sense from her. Like, she wants to be the girl that you want her to be in a way. Like with Diddy, it was a different type of, like, you know, kind of like ride or die, and she's like, this ain't me. Like, skirt, exit. But with Ben Affleck, like, she definitely, like I said, like when we did the Bennifer bonus episode, like her look changed a lot. Like, she's very like girly and like romantic looking and like very feminine and soft and all that kind of stuff. And just a sneak peek, when she winds up with Mark Anthony, she's very like wifely and like very covered and not very like crop toppy, like I'm J-Lo and I'm hot like Jennifer Lopez. Like she's very like, I'm married now, and like, you know, and I think she's one of those girls who kind of adjusts to who she's with. But anyways, so I don't necessarily think that, I'm sure they bickered and probably now do, but I think that their relationship probably was very more traditional in a sense, where she, like in Pat O'Brien, she's like, oh, Ben wears the pants, and like, you know, and I think she wears the pants, and you know, the sense that most women do, like we know what's best most of the time, but you give the illusion that like, this is my man. As you said, you know, she referred to him as her king in Dear Ben, and you're no go on that, but like she was all about that. So,
you know, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think most women, I don't want to say all, and I might want to go back and cut this, but most women, in the sense, let men believe that they're the ones who wear the pants, but in reality they're kind of winking like, yeah, he wears the pants.
Yeah, exactly.
In the relationship, because just, I don't know Jennifer Lopez on a personal level. I'm sorry, I don't. And
J-Lo, we can change that.
J-Lo, please. I'd love to have a sleepover with you at some point. But because I don't know her on that personal standpoint, and what I know of her is based solely through this podcast that we've been doing through what? Just a couple of months? Like
since February? So 4 months?
But I like to think that she is the dominant type, that she's just like, yeah, Ben wears the pants, but really knows the mastermind behind the relationship.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think in general, like, we know that the comparison between the two are very different from Gigli, and that Gigli, they were two co-stars who interacted with each other throughout the entirety of the film.
And I just want to say that Gigli, they weren't dating when they made that movie.
Yeah, that was supposedly their first kiss.
Yes, and she was married, and that was the initiation of their friendship. But by Jersey Girl, they are together. Yes. So I think that definitely plays a part in that.
100%. So I think that it's even difficult to judge their dynamic as Bennifer in Jersey Girl, because we don't see that gratification of a full-fledged relationship where we see the ebbs and flows that we do kind of with Gigli. And again, Kevin Smith, release your director's cut.
I just want to see the wedding scene, kind of. That's the big one. I'm like, oh man, we were robbed. Like, yes, I understand they were engaged. They wind up breaking up their engagement and not getting married. So yes, absolutely take that out for their sanity. But I want to see it now.
Yes.
It's been long enough.
Yes, I do too. So, Bria, do you think that this movie holds up to today? If there was some kind of modern adaptation to Jersey Girl, do you think that these kinds of roles hold up to today?
Absolutely. Obviously, Liv Tyler would not be working in a video rental store. But for the most part, yeah, you could totally remake this movie. I think it is a satisfying rom-com. I personally, in my fanfic RPG days of the OC, probably would have saw this movie and stole this plot for an RPG or something. I definitely read fanfics like this where, you know, someone's husband passed and they have a kid and now they fall in love with someone else and all that stuff. It's a very interesting dynamic to play out with a new relationship and how that person adjusts to you having a child already and stuff like that. There's nothing really I would change besides obviously our constant call for the director's cut. Yeah, I really like this movie. I think it did what needed to be done, and yeah, there's nothing I would change or really want to see differently. And I think in 2021, obviously, some small nuances of culture would change, but for the most part, like, it very much could still just happen.
Do you feel like Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler are believable as an on-set couple?
I do, yeah. And I think it probably, and I think this is word to Kevin Smith, is of him kind of reusing people in his movies. I think I don't know if this was intentional of having Ben and Liv together because of Armageddon, but I think that helps. Like, they have prior history together, and so I'm sure doing a movie with someone you've already done a movie with helps in terms of that. So I totally believe that. I do think it's a bit weird. We don't know exactly how old Liv Tyler is, but it seems like she's younger than him, especially given where she's working and that she's like in school working on some kind of paper and study.
Yeah,
I think it's grad school though.
It's definitely, yeah, it's like, it's ambiguous, but it's like, I want to say what, mid to late 20s of someone who would be in grad school. Or, yeah.
And we don't really know how old Ollie is, but yeah. So besides that, like, I think they're pretty believable. When you really look at it, like, the whole her propositioning him thing really is kind of weird. But like earlier, it works, and you don't care about it because it works.
Yeah.
But like, looking at it for what it is, you're like, oh, that is kind of suspect. But yeah. Besides that,
yeah.
So,
All right. Well, I mean, this movie pretty much holds its own in 2021 as like a dramatic. I don't know. Would you say this is a rom? Is it a rom-com for you? Like a sad rom-com, a drama rom-com?
Yeah, it has notes of sadness for sure, but there are elements of rom-comness, especially like the whole shower scene, the whole scene with him walking in on little Gertie with the boy, and them showing each other their private parts, and then being like, what are your intentions with my daughter? Those moments, are obviously very comedic. Him stopping his dad while he's working because he actually has to take care of his child.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that definitely help the comedy part of it. The romantic part I don't think is super duper strong because we're getting the end and sort of death of a relationship, and then we're getting the beginning of something that's very budding and not very fully fledged or serious. So it is not a la like to go back to JLo rom-coms, Wedding Planner, where it's like, you're the one, or I'm way more into you than I expected. Or Made in Manhattan as well, where it's like, no, like, this doesn't matter. I want to see if this is going somewhere. This movie doesn't have that element of that, of like, this is something. It's just like, this is casual and this is fun. And I think it does at the very, very end, but not like at a point throughout the movie. Well, I mean, those movies, it is at the very, very end too. But it's not as strong as those movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I could totally see Ollie and I forget Liv Tyler's character's name, but
Maya?
I could totally see them dating and it not working out and totally being okay with that. Wedding Planner, Made in Manhattan, there's like this weight of like, I want them to work out and be happily ever after. Whereas I feel like because, again, that this is a story about really Ollie getting back
Truly.
to living life and trying to get back to what
Yeah.
he had before, that there's not too much weight on them being happy together. It's more so just like, wow, I'm happy he's moving forward and he's grieved enough now that he can live his life and you know, whatever that be, if that's with Maya or not with her, like he's reached that point in his grief that, like, you know, he can move on and still love Gertie and still honor her and all that stuff, but still, like, you know, have a life after her.
Yeah.
So those are my long-winded thoughts that I always give.
I appreciate those long-winded thoughts, and I think that too, it's whenever a rom-com has to deal with a widow situation or a situation where someone passes, it's hard because that's not funny when someone dies, or
and it's not that romantic. Like,
it's agreed. It's
in
not
a loyal way, but it's not in a like you want them to date way. You're
exactly.
like, well, shit. Pause.
Exactly, and especially in the way that like Jennifer Lopez passed after childbirth,
yes.
which, I mean, shit, even in like 2003 standpoint, and now that I know the vast amount of people in my life that have had children, it's a lot harder and more medically intrusive and scary, as like way more than you think it is. And so it's easy for someone to see a movie in 2003 where someone, or 4, where someone passes of complications in birth to be like, what? That's crazy. We've come such a long way. In actuality, no, we fucking don't. Like, pregnancy complications are huge.
Yes.
And, I mean, not to be like a huge black rain cloud on the end of this show, but I think that for a movie that is supposed to be a romantic comedy, it still pulls itself off as a romantic comedy given the difficult circumstances that the premise of how this started.
Which, now that you've said that, like, I know that we've been like, oh, give us more Jennifer Lopez because this is our intention.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if we got some of those more, like the longer cut or more scenes with Ollie and Gertrude and like their wedding and stuff like that, if that would taint him moving on.
That, or how would this movie be different if Liv Tyler was the wife and Jennifer Lopez was the blockbuster employee?
I feel like that's a trope within itself. Just racially.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm just immediately like, well, Jennifer Lopez is the hot Latina. And, yeah, I don't think that would work because I think, like, Liv Tyler propositioning him to have sex, if that was Jennifer Lopez, you'd be like, of course she would. Like, and of course he would want to. Whereas with Liv Tyler, and this is so terrible, like, of racial, like, stuff, but with Liv Tyler, you're like, oh, and like, okay, yeah, just do it.
She's
like,
the big doughy-eyed, blue-eyed blonde girl, or not blonde, but just the big doughy-eyed, like, female protagonist who is here to heal you, but also show you the finer things in life and learn how to laugh again.
Yeah. And like, I think probably, again, just because she's our consistent queen, that Jennifer Lopez would somehow pull it off. But I don't think that audiences and, you know,
this
even
film
myself,
would have been perceived so much more different.
Yes.
So much more.
Even myself, I will say that. Like,
Yeah.
I probably would perceive it, like, so
Yes.
much differently
Yes.
just because of who she is. And I think that was brilliant of Kevin Smith, because part of me wants to know whether, like, he cast Jennifer Lopez because she auditioned and he was like, yeah, you're great, this is who I, you know, want to play this, or if it was like a Bennifer type, like, Ben Affleck's my homeboy, this is who he's dating, oh, it'd be fun if you guys did this together, or, you know, it would be cute, like. So part of me is wondering about that aspect of like her being cast, because
it's a good point.
I also don't necessarily think I would have pegged her as like, oh, I wrote Gertie and J-Lo's who I thought of. Like, no.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's true. As soon as I asked that question, I mean, I already kind of knew that it would not have the same impact. It would not have the same feelings going into it, knowing if Jennifer Lopez played the role of Maya or Liv Tyler, whatever. They're just, yeah, I think knowing what we knew about Bennifer, it would have tainted a little bit.
Yeah.
So, Bria, we've talked about this movie. It is now 8:11. I want to say we started recording, at like 6?
Yeah, my recording time is like, we're 5 minutes away from 2 hours.
Excellent. So we're very, very close to 2 hours recording.
Somebody thought we wouldn't have a lot to say about this movie, and I think we're inebriated, so that helps. But
it's true. I have a whole fucking magazine in front of me and some Geely scripts, but that's fine. Bria, what is, or do you have a movie snack spread or cocktail that would go with this movie?
Oh man, I don't actually. I don't. Maybe some Jersey Mike's and a beer from your local watering hole that you hang out with your buddies after work. Yeah. This movie wasn't very food forward or drink forward either. Yeah, that's all I got.
I can appreciate that.
A nice hoagie.
a nice hoagie. There are a couple of cocktails that are dedicated just for New Jersey, or just like they're called Jersey cocktails.
And we're also tainted by the magnificent pop culture icon that is Jersey Shore. So
GTL baby. Yes, I agree. So for the like generalization Jersey cocktail, we have simple syrup, bitters, hard cider, and lemon peel, which, I mean, given aside bitters and simple syrup, I mean, I know you and I, in our early days, Bria, we used to talk about ciders.
Yes.
And so I could see us kind of potentially fucking with a cider with this movie. But in terms of like snacks, I didn't have anything, unless we're pairing it specifically with Sweeney Todd. Which then it's like raspberry filled everything, so that it's like gushing with blood.
Oh, I love a raspberry filled donut. So
it's so good. So then my question, Bria, it's not necessarily a would you rather, but if you had to pick a musicale, what starring musicale would you choose?
Ooh, okay, so the first thing that came to mind to me was The Wiz. But then secondly, Dreamgirls.
Okay.
I feel like I'm probably better versed with Dreamgirls than The Wiz. Like, I've seen The Wiz a lot, but not like Dreamgirls, Beyonce, everything. Granted, The Wiz, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, everything.
We should. I mean, I am almost down to like watch a Wiz tonight.
He's on down
the road.
That is one thing I feel like I can hold my black card on, because I've seen The Wiz, but I have not seen The Wizard of Oz. So
wow, okay. Knowing, I mean, my window of black culture obviously is like much different from yours, but as someone who has watched both, that's interesting, because when you think of like classic, like Americana films, Wizard of Oz comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen,
but stuff. So does the fucking Wiz. I mean, Wiz is great. I'm totally not
No. I don't think you're, like, trying to be like, how have you not seen The Wizard of Oz?
No, that's, like, not, but I'm just like, interesting. Because I don't know, obviously, I have a black card, so I don't know what that's like to have that
It's a
window.
hard existence, really. I am hanging on to mine probably by a thread.
Yeah, we're not going to get to Bennifer 2021 in our In Touch magazine. Bria and I will read this together at some point tonight. Yeah, so outro us out, my lady.
All right, so we didn't think we were going to talk about Jersey Girl this much, but I mean, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez, you're a magic duo, and I don't think we could have helped ourselves. So, with that, we wrap up this episode of Roll Call. And so, thank you for everyone listening to this week's episode, and to the people who've stuck with us so far. I just want to say, I am thoroughly impressed that we've had any kind of listens. So thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, and probably Simone's as well. We're really doing this for our sake and quarantine sake and fun, and hopefully you will witness some growth and the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. But come back for another episode of the great value version of Inside the Actor Studio.
Exceptionally well put, Bria. Thank you so much. And for those of you in Greece and the UK and beyond who have liked us enough to stick around, please take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us as we discuss Shall We Dance next week.
On that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I'm your host, Simone, and please subscribe to this blessed mess. Leave us a like if you're into it.
Yeah, and I'm your host, Bria, and it would be awesome for you to wipe off those buttery popcorn fingers and give us a review. And to quote Erykah Badu, keep in mind that I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. So from me to you, don't be a dick. Just, if you have something nice to say it. If you have some constructive criticism, we are open to hearing those things. It is very easy to, just like us very easily critiquing these movies and performances, it's very easy to be a critic when you're not actually doing it. So just keep that in mind. But this has been another episode of
Roll Call and Cut.
Hopefully we have some audio that is usable.
But anyways, and I am terrified